What does it mean to create a life of meaning? I know that you understand it intellectually, but if I invite you to actually take the question inside and to contemplate what it means just for you. You know, if I came down and I sat and it was just me and you, and I said, go to the end of your life and look back, would you be able to say that you lived a happy, fulfilling life, one that had meaning? It's a difficult question to answer. I know, because I've asked a lot of people that same question. I tend to get one of three responses when I ask it to clients. The first one is they go they look blank actually, they look very surprised, almost like, is she talking to me? It's like the question doesn't even land, it doesn't go in. The second response is they go really quiet, they fidget in their seat. And they take a long time. If you're having a conversation with somebody and they take 5 or 10 seconds to answer, it's a long gap, right? And then they look at me and their voice goes so soft and they say, I don't know. I don't know what I need to be happy. And the last answer I get is the one that probably upsets me the most because they laugh at my question. They can't even take their life seriously. So my question to you is, if you don't take your life seriously, if you don't take your happiness seriously, who's going to? Because nobody else will. I grew up in a family with an older brother and sister. My sister, from my perspective, was the apple of my dad's eye. She was extremely intelligent, and my father really valued academia and achievement above everything else. I mean, he'd been raised in a family, he'd lost his mother when he was 7. And his one regret in life that he ever told me before he died was that he wished he'd gone to university. So I really understand for him, it must have been disappointing that neither my brother or myself actually wanted to go down that path. In fact, I'm recalling a memory of when I was a very young girl. I would be about 5, and I had this absolutely white hair, short, cropped, and I was wearing what was my favourite dress on the whole planet. You have to listen really carefully to this, because it was called my Busy Lizzie dress. I don't know why, but it was pink and white, and it had this pocket on it that had a heart on it, and I believed this dress had magic powers. If I put my hand in the pocket and I shut my eyes really tight and make a wish, I believed it would come true. Well, I have to tell you, I wished for a pony a lot, and it didn't happen. But there were some days where I'd put my hand in my pocket and I'd shut my eyes really tight. And I'd say, please, 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 make Mummy stop crying. And I'd have other days where it just felt even worse. I'd put my hand in and I'd shut them even tighter. And I'd say, please, please, please make Daddy stop shouting at Mummy. This stuff doesn't make sense when you're 5. And I know you've probably all had difficult times yourself. And it was only later as an adult, when I reflected back, I realised that I learnt 2 very valuable things when I was young. One was what it was like to be a woman, growing up in a home with a very domineering, authoritative man. That's had a huge impact on my life. And the second thing I learned was that there was no space for what was actually the real Ali, which was that I was very sensitive and very emotional. I asked my mother to describe me, and she said that I was very happy-go-lucky, very socially confident. We'd go camping every summer, and apparently you'd never find me in my own tent. I'd be in somebody else's, and my mum developed this whistle, which I probably can't do because my mouth is very dry, but it would be a... I knew I wouldn't be able to do it. And I'd come running from the campsite before the curfew, stepped in with my dad. But I grew up constantly battling with my dad about my education. It actually wasn't that I was a bad student. I wasn't. I mean, my report card was sort of a mixture of A's, B's, and C's. It wasn't bad at all, but it was never good enough. So we battled continuously. I dreaded parents' evening. And I dreaded bringing my report card home. But it reached a head when I was 17, and I did my first year of A-levels. And it's going to sound funny, but actually it wasn't funny. My dad really influenced the subjects that I picked. I picked Russian political history and economics, which, if you knew me at all, is so far removed from anything I would ever pick to study. So it reached a point where I thought, I just can't bear this anymore. My results at the end of my first year didn't meet the expectation. So I made a decision in an argument. I just said, I don't want to go back to college. I want to leave. I want to go and get a job. The truth was, I wanted to leave home quickly. And that's what I did. I went and got a job in banking. A fantastic decision for me to do. Really good decision. Within 6 months, I moved out of home and I had some independence. And I was actually very fortunate. I seemed to just have a natural flair. I got promoted a couple of times within several years. And that actually carried on. I moved out. I actually managed to get a deposit together by the time I was 20 and bought my first flat. And then when I was 26, I was asked to be part of an up-and-coming team that were putting together, were dealing with a project in London. I mean, the banking industry went through enormous change in the early 80s. And, I was actually part of that. It was at the front end, actually bringing around a lot of the change. My life was actually, it was magnificent. I'd met and fallen in love with the man of my dreams that I'm still married to today. I had my own place. I had a car that, unlike you, I could afford to run. So it's, there was a lot my life was very full and rich. I'd go so far as to say I was a very happy young woman. And there have been several studies done about what it means to be happy. What is it as a species that we need to be able to say that we've been happy? Well, the longest one that I'm aware of is, it's called the Grant Study, and it was done as part of the study of adult development at Harvard Medical School. This thing spanned 75 years. Some of these men are still alive and they're in their 90s. And sadly, when they started it, it was just men. They have now allowed their partners to come on board. But the findings are still really valid. They took a cross-section of 19-year-olds, some of them from Harvard, and some of them from some of the poorest areas of Boston. And when they surveyed them at 19 and said, what are your top 2 goals in life? They shared the same top 2 goals. Isn't that incredible? Such different social backgrounds. The first one was wealth, and the second one was fame. What is this about that we get so caught up chasing things, wealth, fame? Why? Well, I have to thank my many clients for the learning that I've got, that there are 2 types of fulfillment in life. The first one is temporary, and the second one is lasting. And we're all familiar with both of them, but temporary fulfillment is a thing that is outside of us. For me, I got a job, I got promoted, and I wanted the next promotion. I'd familiarise myself with the pay grade, the one that I wanted to go to next. I bought a car, but I wasn't happy with that car. I wanted another car. And it doesn't matter what somebody's thing is. It can be about, I don't know, designer clothes, jewellery, anything, you name it. But it's something that's happening outside of you. And then there's lasting fulfillment. And for me, lasting fulfillment is something that touches you inside. You have a moment with a loved one or a child, or you go out for a night and you just laugh and laugh like you've never laughed before. And you take that with you. It's inside you. Nobody can take that away. So with a temporary fulfillment, it's only ever as good as your last or your next fix. We've all had this, haven't we? We get something, we want something else. Whereas lasting fulfillment stays with you for always. And I want to be really clear. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have money. I like money, okay? I'm not saying that at all. And we need it. We live in a world where you have to have money to survive. But it's when you get lost in chasing it and you forget a very important question that I'd like you to remember. Why do you do what you do? You're all about to make big decisions about your lives. And if you want to be rich, I say, great, I'm not judging that. It gives you a lot of choices in life. But ask yourself why you do what you do. Why do you want to work in helping to save the planet? Why do you want to go into economics? Why do you want to go into psychology? If you figure out why you do what you do, you'll find some lasting fulfillment. If you get stuck on the other one, I'm honestly here to tell you it doesn't work. I read an article a couple of weeks ago in a newspaper. It was headlined, "Midlife Crisis, the Angst of the 50-something." And they were basically saying that we have got more middle-aged people that are suffering from the classic midlife crisis than we've ever had before. More middle-aged people are dependent on antidepressants than ever before. It's not just middle-aged people. Statistics tell us that 1 in 10 young people will suffer from a mental illness in their lifetime. 1 in 20 will suffer from full-on depression. 17% of our youth have suicidal thoughts. And in 2013, there were 6,233 suicides just in the UK. We do not have this sorted out. We're not moving towards creating fulfillment, happiness. We're going further away. Every year, the statistics go up. I know you know this. We read about it all the time. I've had my fair share of listening to what I would call inspiring, motivational, impassioned people that call us from the stage. Go find the one thing that's going to bring meaning to your life. It's going to give you purpose. Go out, make it happen. I tried that. I'm a very high energy person. I would come home from those things and you'd think that I've taken some substance that I probably shouldn't have. But I mean, I'd get so carried away trying to find that one thing that was going to make my life complete. But just for me, what happened is the motivation waned. Maybe it was a month or 2 months or 6 months, but it just started to go away. And the worst thing is, when that happened, I felt like I'd failed. What I've learned from being in the coaching industry is it's not one thing. We're multi-dimensional creatures. Your life is multi-dimensional. So I like to view it as a wheel. Think of a wheel, and it's sectioned as a wheel is. And in each section of that wheel is something that's really important to you. Nobody else. This is your life. You design it any way you want to. So in one area, you might have an intimate relationship. You might have your career at the moment because it's so at the forefront of your mind. Maybe in one, you'll have finance. But I always suggest to people, don't put your career, your passion, your work in the same box as your finances. You can earn a lot of money. And if you've got a partner at home that's miserable, that you're not connecting with, there's no intimacy between you, it doesn't matter how much money you earn. And vice versa, you can do what you love and be broke. And that brings suffering too. So what I'm saying is figure out what areas of your life matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, include religion, spirituality, making a difference. For me, learning and growing is a huge part of my life. But you have to design it. So think of a wheel. I'm really inviting you to go home and do this. And in the center of the wheel is a big fat 0. You know, that part of your life is really not fulfilling anything in you. And the outside of the circle is a 10. It couldn't get any better. And I'm not saying go for a 10, absolutely not. In my experience, as long as you reach a 7 in the things that really matter for you, you're so on the right path. So let's go back. Here I am, 26 years old. I've got a great career. I'm earning a lot, or a decent amount of money. You know, I've met and fallen in love. We bought a house together. My life is perfect. From the outside, it looks absolutely perfect. Well, I'm going to be really honest. 5 years in, getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, in the dark, to be in London for 7:30. going out 3 or 4 nights of the week, entertaining clients. I'm falling into bed at 11:30, 12 o'clock, having drunk too much, which sounds like fun, but when you do it for a number of years, it stops being fun. And the pressure, oh my word, the pressure. So, we had lots of targets, and like most things in these things, your target keeps moving. If you hit it, they just put it up for you. And it was great, to reach number 1, pole position. You go to the pub or the wine bar that night and celebrate. Everybody's patting you on the back and saying, well done, you've done it again. But I got to the point where I had to get up at 6 a.m. and I had to put my armour back on and go back into battle because my fix was only as good as the last month. And it was really wearing me out. My health started to suffer. But I was lucky. I really think I was one of the lucky ones. Mother Nature stepped in and I found myself, it was unplanned, but I was pregnant with the first of my 3 beautiful boys that absolutely changed my life. So is that the happy ending? Is this where I finish and say, that's it, everything was great? No! Because I'd already bought into my lifestyle. So I went part-time, but I was then juggling like so many other people in the world. I'm juggling work, a young family, a home, husband, and I was just exhausted. I'd fall into bed every night, absolutely worn out. But there came a crunch point, and I know at some point in all of your lives, you'll have a crunch point. I went to pick up my children from the childminder, because I then had 2. I had another little one. And I rang the doorbell. It was the favourite part of my day, because you'd press the doorbell and all you'd hear was squeals of like, "Mummy, Mummy, Mummy!" And then my eldest would come tearing down the corridor into my arms, closely followed by his brother, who was on all 4, so he was quite a bit slower. But my childminder was desperately trying to get my attention. She said, "Ali, you'll never guess what happened today." What? And she went, "Oh, it was so cute. It was so cute." She said, "Jack walked from the chair to the sofa. It was so cute." I honestly felt like somebody had gone in and ripped my heart out, which I know sounds really dramatic. But you see, for me, it was a defining moment because my heart wasn't in my job, it was at home with my children. And it was really, really important for me to learn to stay at home. So I went home and I said to my hubby, Paul, I don't want to go to work. 2 weeks of soul searching to make a decision to leave. Of course, it affected our lifestyle massively. I quit. Is that the end? Not quite, but nearly. Because there's never one thing, I would say for the 3 years that followed, I was the most contented, happy, peaceful, joyful I've ever been in my life. I absolutely loved being a mum to these 3 boys. And then it changed because our life does change. I got to a point where I thought, well, what about my brain? What else do I want to do? Is this it? Is this my one thing? No, of course not. We're multi-dimensional. So I had to create something that fitted around my top values. My top values were, and I'm very proud to say, still are, being a mother, and then my work. And I'm really proud of that. So that's what I did. But the really important lesson here was it took getting that miserable for me to realize that I'd followed a path that actually was my dad's idea of success. My dad valued achievement, remember, above everything else? So I'd gone out and pursued his version of success, not Ali's. I'm actually very soft, very emotional, very caring. I'm in so the right profession now. I wasn't born to go and do that and be in the corporate world. So I'm going to leave you with this. Whose life is it? And whose responsibility is it to create a life that when you get to the end of the road, you can look back with a smile on your face and say, my life was happy. Thank you.